What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 2 of Tallboys
and Trackmasters.
What's going on, Trevor?
Just here with my 24-ounce tall boy.
That's a tall man.
Tall man.
That's a tall man.
No better way to unwind on your Tuesday night.
Yeah, right before I got to go in for midnight shift.
It'll make it a lot more enjoyable. Your welds will probably still look the same.
Yeah, I'll still need a grinder. Definitely have Stevie Wonder grinding discs there.
Hey, Ray Charles says they look great, man.
Ray Charles Customs.
Yeah, buddy.
All right, so thanks for tuning in, everybody. We appreciate it again. And this is episode 2. We're going to go over what is Dualsport to us. What do we consider it? What's kind of the current state of Dualsport, and especially in the state of West Virginia where we're at. Before we get started, though, a couple little things I want to kind of go over. I'm sure some of you saw some of the news there. We had 2 deaths in the motorcycle industry that we want to talk about real quick. First being kind of a well-known guy, Robbie Knievel, son of Evil Knievel, passed away. I know being a kid, I was just kind of drawn to that, especially Dad growing up watching Evil Knievel. And I think one of my fond memories I have is where he tried to jump that one part of the Grand Canyon. It was on like a big CR 500 and just absolutely eating it on the other side when he landed. And the other one we want to talk about is kind of a local guy. Some of you may know him, Johnny Lee. Johnny was a guy from Florida, came up around here in West Virginia, used to race pro motocross back in the super early 70s. We're talking 71, 72. He was actually a factory OSA rider back in the day. Lived on Bunner's Ridge, worked for GNCC Racing for years and years. I got to know him very well, helping him out in the summer times, doing some tree work and some scrapping and stuff. Got to ride a lot over his property. He lived right beside Sagebrush Roundup. So Kathy, his wife, you're in our thoughts and prayers, and Johnny will definitely be missed. And I got a quick little excerpt I want to read about him that was in one of the quick fill GNCCs there a couple years ago. Let me pull it up here. Johnny Lee was one of the most badass people from the old days of GNCC racing. Johnny was from the Morgantown area and raced the early Blackwater 100 events before eventually helping out with the GNCC track crew for many years. However, before that, Johnny was a fast motocrosser in those old Florida Winter Series, even riding as a factory OSA rider and beating some high-up profile riders. Unfortunately, he was a lot older than those guys and never did get a fair shake at becoming a professional motocross racer. He was still around. He's definitely no young buck anymore, and you can still feel it every time he shakes his hand because his grip was intense. And I can attest to that because whenever you would shake that guy's hand, he would just try to put you into the floor. I mean, he was a little guy too. He was like 5'6", 5'7", and he would shake your hand, grab it, try to put you in the floor, and say, "Are you afraid of me? Then why are you shaking?" Every single time. So you will be missed, Johnny. Rest in peace, buddy. All right. That being said, let's kind of get into the meat and potatoes of the episode here. So, what is Dualsport, Trevor, to you?
Dualsport to me is mainly just getting together with a group of buddies, getting bikes in the woods or on some interesting terrain, or riding towards some kind of feature, like getting out, seeing some more country. I don't know. It's kind of something really difficult to pin down exactly what dual sporting is. So somebody mentioned that's middle-aged dudes and above riding in the woods, which has pretty much been my experience, is just, bouncing my bike off trees as a bunch of middle-aged dudes watch on.
Yeah. Yeah. I think to me, it's one of the most broad disciplines when it comes to motorcycles. You've got motocross, you need to be able to be physically fit, obviously, be able to clear jumps, and, it's kind of a short motos. GNCC hare scrambles is more about endurance and just kind of surviving out there on the trail. But I think dual sport riding kind of encompasses all of those disciplines. It takes something from everything and kind of puts it together. It's what makes it unique to me. So it's everything from commuting to work on a little 250 to loading up your adventure bike and doing the Trans-America Trail. I mean, it's everything in between. It just kind of encompasses so much in the disciplines.
I was really drawn to it because, back before gas was expensive and, you could get parts for your Jeep pretty easy. I was, like you, I enjoyed going out and wheeling. And then I saw more and more stuff get closed up. And once I started riding dual sport, it was like a whole new era for the whole exploration and off-road adventure side of things, because there's roads classified as being county around here that need to be hard pressed to get a Jeep or something through, that you can take a bike through and just have a great time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Obviously I grew up from 7 years old racing and riding motorcycles my whole life, basically. And dual sport and adventure riding kind of seemed what all the old retired guys did when they couldn't hack it anymore out on the track. And I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, my dad kind of really got into dual sport riding a good bit with him and some of the old former racers. And I remember they invited me one day to ride Jason King's XR650L and said, we're going to go down towards Canaan Valley. And I'm like, man, that just doesn't sound like a good time to me. Like, be putting along on these trails and stuff. And like within the first hour, dude, I was absolutely hooked. I saw more about this state than I'd seen in 24 years of being alive at that point. And it bit the bug. Racing started getting too expensive and just too time consuming, and it wasn't fun anymore for me. And being able to just throw a leg over your street legal motorcycle and go across town for a little bit and hit some of those awesome county roads that we have, especially around here in Fairmont, and still kind of exercise the demons, so to speak, when it comes to speed and just kind of getting your frustrations out. And then, like you said, hanging out with your buddies, man. I've made so many good friends in this FDSR group, just common interest and guys getting together and just having a good time.
No, it's the best. I mean, to this day, I think I've been riding dual sports since like 2019 at this point. Of course, I didn't have any racing background or anything like that. Just kind of got into it as a fluke once I was old enough and off my parents' health insurance and all that fun stuff. To this day, like throwing a leg over one of my bikes with the knobbies and stuff on it, it just feels illegal. Like to be able to take something like that with the bare minimum amount of street legal equipment, or sometimes under the bare minimum, depending. My blinker got caught on a tree or something. Just taking it out there and being able to connect trails, pretty easy without the fuss of like having to air up tires, air down tires if you're in a Jeep, or any of the other stuff you have to deal with.
Right. Yeah. Like you said, I kind of come from that same background, from Jeeps and stuff too. And being able to utilize a lot of the routes and stuff that I had, doing the Jeep thing, it's a lot more fun to me on a dual sport just because you go through stuff way faster.
Oh yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like there was a trail that I took and showed one of my buddies from Elkins, and like in a Jeep, it's a 2-hour ordeal to get through it. Like there's some ledges and some drop off stuff like that. And I think on a bike we were through it in like 20-30 minutes.
Yeah. Same thing. I took a group of buddies of mine up Oil Well Hollow, and then down Lake School Road and down Fetterman into Grafton. And it took us, I think it was 4 or 5 of us, and it was like at least 2.5-3 hours to go through what we can usually get through in a bike in about 35 minutes.
Oh, so, yeah. It's just a quick trip through it.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing to kind of go over too is dual sport kind of has a broad meaning anymore, because it's become so popular that it's not just, you guys on your XR650Ls getting together with your buddies and doing a little bit of gravel road and some dirt. I mean, I think it's kind of shifting more to the paradigm of like street legal 2-strokes, like just being able to throw a plate on your 300 2-stroke to be able to connect trails back and forth.
Yeah.
I know going to some of these, the bigger events for the first time, it was just absolutely mind blowing to see all these 2-stroke guys around, and like, it was just single track. They didn't want any kind of roads to connect stuff in between. And I think a lot of the bigger events are kind of shifting that way.
Well, like you said, it's a spectrum. You've got like the hardcore guys that want to avoid pavement and gravel at all costs. If it doesn't look like something that Billy Bolt or Graham Jarvis would be riding, they don't want anything to do with it. All the way up to the guys that, have gravitate towards, gravel riding, mixed road riding. They're more focused on the scenery, the overall journey versus like, man and machine versus terrain and obstacles, things like that.
Yeah, that's definitely got something for everybody. And I know I was kind of the camp, the ex-racer that just wants to hit all the hardcore stuff and make it as tough and challenging as I possibly can, and not really fun for a lot of other guys. And I think,
I've been on your rides. I'm aware.
Yeah, I'm the idiot of the group for sure. But I think, like you said, even the sights and stuff sometimes can be well worth the journey of maybe doing a gravel road that's not as fun.
Yeah.
Our ride we put on there, the Brandywine Boogaloo, really wouldn't be up on what I would consider the difficult scale, but just being able to ride that long and see like Reddish Knob and Flagpole Knob, and
it was just cool getting out and seeing new terrain.
Right.
I grew up around Elkins. The terrain up in Fairmont's pretty similar. You get used to seeing it's the same rock, same route, same clay, same everything. But to get somewhere else and, find something that's got significantly different terrain or something like that, to me is really interesting. And then, you get in different scenery. Like you're talking about the Brandywine Boogaloo, that was a blast to me. Even the sections that we had to hit pavement, it was so alien to me, just getting in between two like 12-foot tall rows of corn, but you can still see like the mountains and stuff, off to the sides.
Yeah, it's such a good area. And for those that not sure where that's at, it's down around Franklin and Brandywine, West Virginia, right on the West Virginia state line on Route 33. That's where most of that riding's at, in the George Washington National Forest. Awesome area. If you've never been down there, definitely check it out. And for my hardcore guys, make sure you hit up the Rocky Run ATV trail down there. That is one of the hardest places I've ever rode. We're talking Graham Jarvis style rock switchbacks on cliffs. It's I think it's 4.7 miles long, and it's a rough 4.7 miles. Definitely worth the trip if you've never been there.
So we talked about what is, dual sporting in general, but what's the outlook for the state? Like, I guess a little bit of past, present, and then looking into the future.
Yeah. I mean, West Virginia kind of started out the same as everybody else, I think, as far as dual sports. As soon as there were street legal motorcycles, and even before then, guys were banging Harleys around in the woods back in the 50s around here. As well as everybody else, that West Virginia's road systems are kind of terrible. The maintenance is terrible. So a lot of people bought them just to have something that wouldn't get destroyed trying to get to.
If it's not a bike trail right now, give it 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there really wasn't a whole lot of like dedicated dual sport events. I know right around when the Blackwater 100 rolled around, they actually did have a dual sport ride that was kind of coincided with that. And a lot of the pro guys that used to race the Blackwater 100, Scott Summers, Mark Hyde, those type of people, they definitely would do that dual sport ride too. I know you always see old Mark Hyde on a DR 350 back in the late 80s with those big, thick prescription goggles.
Prescription goggles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some really cool video. Actually, I found a clip of that there a few months back, and it showed those guys kind of riding around Davis and going on Canaan Loop back in 1987. So it's really cool to see that. And then, like I said, from there, it's just kind of transition. I think, early 90s is kind of the professional guys that were kind of getting out of racing and want to go riding with their buddies and not have to load up in a pickup truck to go around and connect all their fun stuff together. And I think it really has exploded a lot here in the last few years. I think, there's several different groups in the state, ours being one of them, that kind of helps promote everything. You had the Hatfield McCoy's trail system open up, and I think that kind of really was like a beacon for all the dual sport guys around the surrounding states to come and ride that area. I've been down there. It's awesome. If you've never been, please go. It's a really, really, really awesome place. And, from there, we have our event we put on, obviously, that brings in people from all over this part of the country. We got got a guy that came all the way down from New Jersey our first year, rode a KTM 1090 all the way down. So, I mean, I think it's booming. It's I don't think it's here to stay. It's not going to go anywhere. And ever since the 2020 COVID outbreak, people really got out and was riding a lot more because there was nothing else to do really. So,
man, that was one of the best periods of time too. The roads were clear. It was just a matter of, getting out there and putting some trail miles on. It was fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think for sure West Virginia is kind of a hidden secret, I think, as far as dual sport riding,
Yeah, I agree.
Everybody wants to, and I'm one of the guys that loves to go and experience new places, like you said. But the Meccas, Moab, Utah, Colorado, all the Imogene Pass, and the beautiful, breathtaking places out there that are really fun to ride. As far as the East Coast is considered, man, we have some really, really awesome stuff here in the state, and I think it's a well-kept secret. And that goes for, any kind of off-road discipline, really, Jeeps, dual sports, whatever, what have you. Oh, yeah. Oh, this midnight shift's killing me, man.
So go ahead.
No, you go.
No, you go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
So, like, future outlook for the state, do you think that this is a hobby that's going to continue to grow? I've been especially surprised in the last couple of years. We've seen some additional new riders and things seem to keep growing despite the fact, the economy, inflation, et cetera, stuff I really don't need to get into.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that people are, wanting it bad enough to spend the money to buy the bike still. And I think that's pretty powerful that, somebody's been bitten by the bug, so to speak, to the extent that it's something they want to pursue because it's pretty high startup costs for a hobby you want to get into.
Yeah. Especially on the medical side, if you've never ridden a motorcycle before.
That's true.
Yeah, man, I think it's just going to continue to grow. And I really feel like, our group FDSR kind of helps promote that in the state and grows. And it seems like every time we have a ride, there's new guys that come with us. And, kind of going back to like, our local area here and riding and maybe getting burnt out on some of the local stuff.
Yep.
When new guys come and experience the stuff that we have right around here in Fairmont, that can kind of take, an oil well hollow, which, to me, it's fun. But once you've done something 140 times, it's.
Oh, yeah. You get to the point where you're going up the creek section. You remember exactly where each rock. Yeah.
But when you get to the end of that and you're like, you know what, man, that was, the same as it always was. But you've got 2 or 3 new guys with you that their eyes are lit up and they're just blown away. It really does kind of bring it back to you like, all right, this is a cool area. This is awesome. So I know that's always a nice thing that I like to see.
Another thing for me that was a big deal was, previous to having met you guys, I was just doing solo stuff, just running around kind of finding stuff as I went along. But having a group that knew local trails and was interested in, showing somebody the ropes, showing them around, was a huge benefit to me. I otherwise probably would have lost interest in it by now because there's only so much stuff you can do on your own before you burn out. But having a good group of guys to go out with keeps things fresh. It keeps things interesting.
For sure.
There's always some new local trail or, maybe in the next county over that somebody found that they want to go check out. And it just keeps things interesting.
Yeah, it does for sure. I know, kind of going back to, you're talking about maybe like the future of the sport. I think, us kind of partnering up with the West Virginia Off-Highway Vehicle Coalition is kind of helping get our voices heard anyway, that there's a bunch of us in the state and any type of legislation that comes across that may threaten our stuff. Obviously all the county roads here in the state of West Virginia, we have a really big problem with landowners thinking they own the road and they want to
put
gates up and block trails and stuff off. And, I get it. Maybe the old farmers had that gate up for 400 years, but if we could find a way to connect that road to this road over here that we know and kind of add to our routes. We pay taxes just like everybody else. We should definitely have access to that stuff.
I agree. It all goes back to, keeping public utilities public. I mean, trails, well, not even necessarily trails, county roads, especially.
Yeah. We've had a few gates being put up around this local area for sure, like Hammond. You can't get down.
I went there so often in college, and Shiloh can attest to this. When I bought my first bike, which was the T-Dub, I was super excited to take it out there and mess around a little bit. I hadn't been on a bike in a long, long time, and it was just a real punch to the gut to go out there and see it's completely gated up, and there's no hope essentially with it.
Right.
As far as I know, it's still gated, and that's been years and years ago at this point.
Yeah, I know we look into it, and the one main gate going down the center road that everybody used to go down in, it's actually a legal gate. Somehow they abandoned just a small portion of that road and was able to buy that property up. And there was another entrance you could go in off of
the Burnt Cabin Road.
It wasn't. You can still get in from Burnt Cabin, I think. It was Williams Crossroads.
Okay.
Get to the bottom of there, and there was an old road, but I guess some drunk side-by-side guys kind of pissed off the old lady that lived right there, and she threw a gate up. They keep tearing the gate down. She keeps putting it back up, and it's just like a never-ending thing. You're just fighting it constantly. So, let's see somebody. That's definitely true. People have all kinds of different opinions as far as dual sports are considered, and whatever you said kind of does fit that category.
It is extremely broad. I mean, it even encompasses like I said, adventure style riding, like hardcore trail style riding. It's really just a matter of what you want to get into and what you want out of it.
It's definitely a broad term that covers a lot of bases. And I think it's good to kind of do both. Honestly, if you've got a bike that's capable of doing, hardcore trails and something that can also, do long road days to get to wherever you want to go, that really, really shows the awesomeness of that bike that you have. Like, and a lot of times you kind of have to have two bikes to do that. Cause like we talked about in our first episode, there's not really a unicorn bike that just fits the bill for everything out there. Like me, for example, I've got the KTM 500 EXC, and I love that thing to death, but it's not something that I'm going to want to hop on the interstate and go 15 miles if I have to, or long, Route 50, going 65, 70 mile an hour. I mean, it'll do it, but it's not really.
It'll do it, but it won't like it.
I don't like it. So, I've got that cheap 08 versus 650 that I've definitely taken it places that should never have been anywhere, but it's dirt cheap, and it's a great little like commuter adventure bike. So if we got rides coming up that we're doing that we have a lot of gravel roads and stuff on, it's definitely something that I'm going to take that day.
That's something I'm interested in doing in the future too, is getting something like a DR650, something in that vein, and outfitting it more for like adventure style riding and moto camping, because I think it's really just a good idea, instead of trying to have one bike that'll do everything, is having two bikes that you can split the bill over.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I know, you kind of going along with that too, moto camping is something that's definitely a big part of dual sport riding too. It's really, it's so much fun. I mean, I
highly suggest it. If you're even on the fence about it, I highly suggest making at least one attempt to go out and do it. It's some of the most fun I've ever had. I've been camping for forever at this point, having grown up in Elkins, but some of the most fun camping I've done has been off of a bike. I mean, it's just the freedom. You hear these Harley guys and street bike riders talk about, the freedom of the open road. Well, true freedom is hitting Mon National Forest or something, and wherever you throw a tent down is where you stay for the night.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's just irreplaceable.
Yep. I love camping too.
Yep.
And doing it off the back of your motorcycle with a couple buds, starting a fire at the end of the day of a long ride and cracking open a few cold ones, man. I mean, it's so relaxing.
It's a hard feeling to beat. That's another thing is, when you're hitting more difficult or challenging terrain, it's a massive morale booster, that, you have a bunch of guys or gals, all going towards the same goal. Everyone's trying to get through a section, and to be able to see people progress, to help out, to get everybody from point A to point B, it does feel like a level of accomplishment.
Yeah, it definitely is. And that's something that I love about it too. I know people might think, oh, I'm holding the group up and I don't want to keep doing this. I'm just holding you all behind. Like, just being out and helping that person, maybe showing them a few pointers here and there and getting them to where they're at the point where they can really, really kind of keep up with the group.
Well, that's been huge for me with my development in riding. 'Cause like I said, I really didn't get into it until 2019, and there's been significant progression that wouldn't have happened if I just continued to ride by myself. You get with some guys that have a racing background, especially woods racing. They've got pointers and stuff that'll really make you a better rider. Additionally, is being able to get out of your comfort zone a little bit each time you go ride, and before you know it, you're capable of doing sections or obstacles that even a couple months ago you would have looked at and said, "There's no way I can do this."
Yeah, I can definitely attest to that for you, man. You've definitely come a long way. And stuff I would kind of maybe hang back on. Then he might struggle here a little bit, and I don't have to do that anymore. You're right on my butt.
I appreciate it. Well, they say it's 80% bike and 20% rider. Wait,
Yeah.
maybe that's backwards.
I think that's a little backwards. You got to have a little bit of Graham Jarvis in you. That's all.
Best I can do is probably some Mario Ramon. I don't think I can have the guys that place all the way at the top, but
I know I'll kind of tell everybody a funny story. Whenever you first met up with us there, it's got to be told because it's hilarious.
Oh, it's textbook.
So our buddy Tom King put a little ride together. He wanted to go down to Canaan Valley, and my mom has been trying to go down and do Canaan Loop and Canyon Rim up towards Olson Tower for a few years. And it was like every time they tried to go somewhere and do that there, it just wouldn't pan out. Like something would happen, somebody get a flat tire or rain, whatever it was, you just couldn't make it there. So it's bound and determined to go there that ride. So we all met up at Hardy's on the west side or Whitehall area of Fairmont. And we were sitting there kind of waiting on a few other guys, and I see this guy come down with a KLX 250 and fairly new looking bike, new gear and everything. I'm like, man, we're waiting on that guy? And Tom's like, no, I don't know who that guy is. He's just riding by, I guess. I was like, all right. And I seen you stopped at the red light, and you're just kind of looking around. Then you look over. Well, hell, there's 10 guys on Dualsport. So,
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I see the blinker come on. I see you pull over, and you introduce yourself, start talking to us, and I'll tell you about the group, and kind of get you on the Facebook page there, and we talk a little bit about some different stuff, and then you ask where we're going. We're like, oh, we're going all the way down to Canaan Valley. We got a pretty good route that hits just bare minimum road and gravel to get all the way there. And you're like, man, that sounds really awesome. I wish I could go. But I think you said you had a coffee date with Shiloh and you couldn't go.
So I had just went and bought that bike at RG's the day before, literally the day before. And we were going to go meet for coffee. And my original plan was to just stop and ask you guys, show me a couple local trails on Google Maps. And that's not how it panned out. I ended up, I'm absolutely blessed and fortunate to have a partner that supports my hobbies to that extent. But called and had to take a rain check on that, and ended up going all the way to Canaan with a group of guys that I really had no idea about.
Yeah.
Which was, it ended up being a pretty pivotal moment.
Yeah. And to top it all off, AJ comes with us there and blows his knee out trying to go down 12 mile.
Well, I'm not just trying to go down 12 mile, trying to pass you going down 12 mile. Our riding pace matched up pretty similar. So we've been riding side by side, and we were going through that section that's got, the moss on the creek rock and all that stuff and the slime. And he started stepping out away from me, and I still had 50-50 tires on that bike. And I was still, really green when it came to the sport. Once he got out away from me, I said, I'm not going any faster. And yeah, about 30 seconds up the trail, there he laid in a pile, and his bike beside him in another pile. And it was very unfortunate, but
yeah. I got to the end of 12 Mile where it kind of splits, and you have to make that right, go across that last little creek crossing before you come down into St. George there. And when I got to the end, my chain popped off. I was like, oh man, all right, I'm gonna try to put this on real quick and tighten the chain up. And I'm sitting there, I don't hear anybody, I don't hear any bikes or anything, and just kind of not really registering with me. I get the chain on, get the chain tightened up, and the next thing I know, here comes my dad on AJ's bike with the handlebars just completely jacked sideways, foot pegs bent, shifters bent. And I'm like, oh God. So yeah, he blew his knee out back there. I'm like, oh geez, it whiz. So we go to the end of 12 Mile, and right across the road when you come out there on 12 Mile into St. George, there's a pretty nice little house and a big pole building right there. And I seen that there was a couple cars there, so I knocked on the door to see if we could borrow their telephone and maybe try to get a hold of somebody to come take him to the hospital. Turns out the old man and lady that lives there are retired EMTs.
Yeah, it could not have worked out better. But that went from, me riding to Canaan with a group of guys I didn't know to me then having to call my girlfriend and say, hey, I'm in a hospital somewhere in Maryland, I think. One of the guys we were riding with blew his knee out. I don't know when I'm going to be home.
Yeah.
That was just, it couldn't have been a better introduction to the group.
You definitely want to come ride with these guys a lot more after this, right?
I mean, it didn't scare me off.
And the worst part about the whole thing was, like I said, my mom still didn't get to make it to Canaan Valley and try to do Canaan that day.
Yep, that is a shame.
Yeah.
But I guess another thing that makes dual sport riding so fun is that sense of adventure that you really can't. It's really difficult to get that anywhere else. I have a pretty broad range of hobbies, from camping to wheeling, Jeeps and stuff, to whitetail hunting, fishing, etc. It's really difficult to get that sense of adventure through any other hobby to me.
Yeah.
Versus dual sport riding.
Yeah, you have no idea what's going to happen. And to me, even a really, really bad day, I mean, we're talking really bad day out on the bike, is still better than a good day at work to me.
Oh, yeah.
Like
that's a no-brainer.
Take, for example, when I had the GPX down in Brandywine, and that whole weekend was just foobarred. It really was.
Of course, man. I ate shit, hurt my shoulder. You had a pinch flat, no spare tube. But if I hadn't hurt my shoulder and dropped out of the rod, I'd have a spare tube that you could have used. I
did have a spare tube, but it was dry rotted from being in the.
Oh, you had the Tom King tube.
I did.
Yeah,
you ate it right.
Tire or a tube in Tom King's bike, and I pulled the tube out of that MSR pouch that looked like it was made when rocks were still soft, and I went to unfold that tube, and I stuck my finger in one side and right out the other.
Yeah. That's right. Mama said I've been that.
That's when James drank the orange Kool-Aid.
That's very true.
Well, to be fair, even pond water would taste good after the flavor that
Yeah, rust water in a bathtub is better than.
It's fantastic.
What would you even call that? The Wuhan Kool-Aid? I
don't know, man. It'd have to be some off-brand. It'd have to almost be an off-brand of an off-brand at that point.
It's like Diet Dr. Thunder that's fell off of the shelf or something. That's what
it's like Diet Dr. Thunder that's had his medical license, revoked.
Going back to that ride, even the start of it, we're all sitting there in camp and everybody's kind of ready to go. And our buddy Chris Aliff had an XR650R like mine. And, it's sitting there idling where everybody's kind of warming everything up. I mean, even going back to that, I forgot my helmet. I had no helmet. I'm like, what the hell?
And I think you forgot a pump for your air mattress too.
Yeah, I had to blow the air mattress up using the heater vents on the Silverado. I had the little tiny hole just up over there, and it worked. But yeah, I forgot a helmet. And luckily Chris had his box trailer there that he races with and had a helmet that would fit me. So onto the show, he's sitting there, XR 650Rs idling, ready to roll, and it just shuts off like, Puh. And he's over there, and I see him. He's like kind of making that weird face, like, well, that was weird, you know. He's over there. He starts kicking it, and it will not run. I mean, it no matter what. And it's got good compression. Seems like it's getting fuel.
Yep.
And he says, "Hey, you have one of these bikes, do you? Don't you?" I was like, "Yeah." He said, "You know, any starting tricks or anything about it?" And I was like, "All right, yeah, I know a few things." I go over there and kind of go through my whole routine. It will not start, no matter what I try either. And you know, we're like, "What the hell happened to this thing? It's weird for it to just quit." You know, it's plug go bad and.
Yeah, I remember we had the plug out of it, checking around. We even took the throttle housing apart to make sure the cable wasn't off the little pulley.
Yeah. And then I remember we hooked it to our buddy's DR650 and started trying to pull start the thing, and it fired up. And but it didn't sound right. It was popping and cracking, just not right, you know. And he rides it back to the truck, and then it quits again. And then it won't even pull start. Nothing. It will not do anything. We're like, what is going on with this bike? And he's like, I don't know, guys. I'm sorry to hold you up. Like, it was already 10 o'clock in the morning at that time. We should have already been on the trail. He's like, we're going to hit up, you know, we'll go to Harrisonburg, Virginia, and try to find spark plug or something and just kind of work on the bike. So we leave, you know, you have your crash, you know, you and Fred have to leave after that. We get to the Rocky Run ATV trail. And like you said, I get to the very top. I think I have 2 miles left and get a flat on the front tube. Pull the spare tube out. It's dry rotted. We got like 9 patch kits trying to put my old tube back together, and it holds just enough air to get back like to the where Route 33 comes through right there in Virginia, and it lets loose again. So we stop at a gas station there. Nick lets me borrow his KTM 500. I ride it 38 miles back to camp to get my truck, come back, load the bike up, get back to camp, and Chris is still sitting there with his bike, and they've been into the moonshine a little bit at that point. And you're like, I couldn't figure it out. You know, we decided to just hang out here and enjoy the park and drink. And then lo and behold, we figured out what happened to that thing. He left a blue shop rag in behind the air filter when he was cleaning it out and forgot it was in there. And when that thing fired up and it ran there for a little bit, it sucked that rag into the carburetor. And then unbeknownst to us, with us trying to pull start the thing, we sucked the rag through the carburetor and into the head, and it got itself completely just entangled up in the intake valves. It's just foobarred. But luckily, he was able to pull that head off, pull the valves out, and clean all the old rag out of there, new base gasket, head gasket, and it was good to go.
That's another thing, like we talked about. You know, you can't. It's like expecting the unexpected to an extent. We're several years out still talking about that like it just happened the other day, because it's things like that happen that make, you know, the most impactful memories.
Oh yeah, for sure. You know, and like going back to moto camping, that night, Saturday night there at the fire at Brandywine, when we were all sitting around, you know, us, Luke, John, and especially Chad Johnson. Chad's a hoot. I love Chad.
Yeah, same.
Just that, you know, you couldn't ask for anything better. And you know, especially when you get done with a day like that and you got a big group and maybe, you know, guys have crashed and you can kind of rag on each other a little bit. Like, it's just, that's what it's all about, man.
Or, you know, you ride KTM and everybody just gangs up on you.
Yeah. Yeah. Or your family disowns you after buying one.
Well, I'll be your replacement family for the time being.
I got plenty of family on here to thank for that. Yeah, man. Like I said, I love Dualsport. It's definitely up there as my favorite hobby for sure. And it's just such a broad thing to talk about. And I think it'd be interesting to see how, you know, this new electric stuff goes, if, you know, mandatory shutting down of any type of internal combustion engines, how that affects stuff going forward. And the electric Dualsport stuff's not really there yet. Just the battery life's not long enough.
I've been saying for, you know, since there's a bike called the Stark Varg that I swear has been end quote development for some like 4 years or something like that at this point. And it's a wonder bike that can do anything but make it, you know, in the public's hands. But ever since I saw the, you know, the inception of that, I've been saying I would like to at least try one. If they could have one that had like a 300-mile range,
Yeah,
charge reasonably fast, but the battery tech's just not there yet.
Yeah.
And then a huge part of riding is, listening to your engine, utilizing the clutch. And a lot of these people that are hopping on this electric bike bandwagon don't have a background in dirt bikes. They have a background in mountain bikes, and they don't necessarily understand the importance of being able to modulate the clutch for traction or, more fine control of power delivery.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the side I really don't want to think about, is like a day coming where they say, well, past this date, we're not allowing any internal combustion engine use on public roads or public lands, what have you.
I promise you, when that day comes, you're going to hear me on Canyon Rim, on the 500, wide open, on my home brewed E85 moonshine stilled stuff that I'd made, absolutely destroying Canyon Rim Trail up to Olson Tower with a herd of, I don't really want to call them what you want to call them behind me. Yep.
A herd of upstanding members of society.
Oh, is that what we're referring to now? Okay. Yeah, sure.
Absolutely. But yeah, that's just something, so terrible I don't even want to think about it.
So if you had to kind of design and put together your perfect dual sport ride, what would that be?
To design and put together the perfect dual sport ride. Well, ideally, you'd split it down the middle to where everybody that liked the hard terrain thought it was a little bit too easy, and everybody that liked soft terrain thought it was too hard. But that's really difficult to do, and I know that's a line that you guys have been trying to walk with, trying to route the the big ride that we put on the 304 detour. It's something really difficult to me. I'm just as content getting a couple guys together and meeting at like Eastside McDonald's at a little bit after sunrise, and then just hitting a bunch of local stuff.
Yeah.
And it can vary in terrain. I like to have some difficult sections, and then followed by a little bit of flowy gravel to kind of take the edge off a little bit, give you a little bit of time to rest up before the next section. It keeps it interesting. Especially if you can play to like intermediate level riders that, like myself, you can't make it up something despite your best attempts. It can frustrate you. And then following that up with an easier section of gravel or something like that, or even just flowy trail, I think is really helpful.
Yeah.
But that's a hard thing to try to do, is create the perfect ride.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's possible. Especially, this will be our 4th year putting on the 304 detour. And I'm kind of at the basis now where as long as 75 or 70% of the guys that showed up had a good time, that's all that matters to me. Yeah. We've got people that come up and say, oh man, that hard loop, why would you try to take your dual sport bike through there? That was the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life, and then, very few, I've only heard from a couple people say that, hard loop was pretty hard, but it could have been a little bit harder. I think you guys could have stepped it up a little bit. And same thing with the easy loop, it's like, the easy loop was too easy this year. And then guys read the easy loop saying, it was too hard. I thought we were just doing, asphalt all day. So you can't please everybody. If you aim to do that, you're just destined for failure 100%. And I think us doing the 2 different loops, it kind of appeals to everybody in the best way that it can. And I know this year what we're going to try to do, it's another 2-day ride. We're going to do the hard loop on Saturday, the easy loop on Sunday. But guys that want to show up and ride both days and maybe don't want to do all of the super hard stuff on the hard loop, we're going to make the hero sections optional this year. So if you bring your KTM 1090 or your Yamaha Tenere 700, something along those lines, you can still do some stuff on Saturday with us and be more suited for Sunday, obviously. But I mean, my perfect ride, I gotta say, really, the Brandywine ride was up there.
Oh, it was so much fun. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of new terrain. Just getting a chance to load the bikes up and go somewhere where I hadn't. really been able to explore very much.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I really like riding a big group, but that has its own challenges, man. You know, you got 2 or 3 guys with bike problems or guys that can't get through stuff. It can turn into a mess really quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, we had 17 people with us on everything from a Yamaha TW200 to a Tenere 700, Aprilia Touaregs, KTM 500s, and everything. And the only issue we had was AJ's flat tire at the end of the day. Everybody made it through everything. The group kept up good speed. We had pretty good lunch in between. The people the camping at the end was amazing. You know,
I wouldn't trade it for anything. I mean, that was a highlight of the year for me.
Yeah, nobody got hurt. Everybody had a good time, and I mean, to me, that was, you know, one of the perfect Dualsport rides for sure. And I think if I was going to plan my own ride, I mean, I kind of did it on my birthday there that you guys came to too, and I like the harder stuff. I like to try to stay somewhere where I'm going to get home by, you know, 5, 6 o'clock that evening if we leave early. But I know we're kind of trying to plan a ride at the Tour de Coalfields this year. I'm really looking forward to that because I really think it fits into that mantra you were talking about, how you could do some hard sections for a while and then maybe there's like 30 miles of dirt and gravel road to kind of take the edge off and cover some miles. So I'm definitely looking forward to the Tour de Coalfields this year for sure.
And where we talked previously about, you know, Dualsport being such a wide spectrum, you know, kind of going back to like the perfect ride. How do you create a ride that appeals to people on street legal 2-strokes, but is still doable by people on like a Versus, you know, or something like that? It's really difficult. I think that splitting it up into 2 days, just like I talked earlier about having 2 bikes.
Yeah.
And, you know, having a bike for more enduro stuff and then a bike for more adventure style riding. I think that splitting the ride into 2 days is going to be beneficial in the same way.
Yeah, I'm definitely planning on taking both bikes this year. I'm going to take the KTM on Saturday and the Versus on Sunday. Yeah, it's hard to find something that fits everything. It's hard to do something, put on an event that appeals to everyone. And I think if you try to set yourself up to do that, you know, have one bike that does everything perfect or a ride that does everything perfect, you're just setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Anything else?
I think we've more or less covered it in our, you know, almost hours worth of rambling about kind of what Dualsport is, the scope of Dualsport in the state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I think our state is definitely a hidden gem on this side of the Mississippi as far as Dualsport riding is concerned.
It's really not something you see talked about, like on Adventure Rider, even on the East Coast section of Adventure Rider. I've noticed people really don't mention West Virginia very much. They're more focused on like the Carolinas and Virginia, which there's great riding out there.
Yeah.
But man, there's some fantastic loops and stuff that you can do even in this area.
Like we mentioned, you know, Laney Hoosier putting together the Tour de Coalfields. Everything I've seen about that, pictures, videos, guys I've talked to that have run it, they love it absolutely to death. Our other buddy Brian Holmes putting together the IMAT stuff. That's a great loop to do. You know, there used to be a Trans West Virginia Trail several years back, but like we talked about with the landowner issues with gated stuff and county roads getting abandoned, that route's pretty well dissolved. It's not really doable now because you're going to end up on private property you shouldn't be.
Well, that's another reason why I want to, every year I just want to ride more than I did the year before, because it's kind of a get out and do it while you can. Because, you know, like I talked about when we first opened, how even to this day, hopping on a bike with street legal knobbies, but we're talking like, you know, Trackmaster and stuff like that, it still feels illegal. And, you know, I hate to say it, but there probably will be a day that they're going to try to pass additional legislation against being able to do something like that. So it's kind of a strike while the iron's hot, get out and enjoy it while it's there for you. because really you don't want to spend the rest of your days, questioning, why you didn't go out and do it, or how much fun you could have had, or the people you could have met, the experiences that you could have had while it was available to you.
Yeah, I know. I'd ride around on the XR 650R, and cops, they wouldn't really look. I think they just thought, oh, it's another Dualsport, it's XR 650L that you see all the time. But I know the KTM, I get a lot more looks. It's like, that thing have a plate on it when it come by me.
Yep. I get a lot of cops that will pull out right behind me. They won't put their lights on, but I know they're wondering about it.
Yeah, it's like, that thing really street
Which
legal?
I get it. It is a dirt bike with a license plate.
Yeah.
It definitely doesn't look like your run-of-the-mill like KLR 650 or something like that.
One thing I will give West Virginia props for is passing the special permit vehicle laws to get side-by-sides street legal, to get, Jeep 2 buggies street legal.
Yep.
And actually give us guys with, dirt bikes that we've converted to be street legal with, whatever lighting kits you want to buy, an option to get it street legal. Because
previously it was a nightmare. You'd have to go through one of those title services that try to route it through like South Dakota or Vermont.
Yeah, Vermont,
that allows it.
Yeah, I know. Like, what was our buddy Mike Heston? He's one of the first guys from our area that I knew that got a KTM 2-stroke street legal.
Yep.
And he still had to jump through some hoops, even with the SPV legislation that was passed. But I know, like, the second year we did the 304 detour, we come through Fairmont, and we're on the high level bridge there at the red light, and he's sitting right there beside me, just just hearing that 2-stroke with that plate on it, and just brought a big smile on my face.
Yeah, well, that's definitely something I'm interested in at some point. On top of the other laundry list of bike related things is maybe trying to see about a street legal 2-stroke.
Yeah, I'm definitely a 2-stroke fan, and I'd love to have like a KDX 200 or 220 that was street legal. Just
that's exactly what I was hoping to find, but man, based on my search, it's not.
They're hard to find anymore, buddy.
It's difficult to find one that's in usable condition.
One thing I will point out, you say West Virginia did something right there. That they did good, but then they also did bad, because when that legislation was passed, they also tacked on a little snippet on that bill that nobody really caught whenever it was finally sent through, that was requiring anybody that had any type of motorcycle or four-wheeler, anything like, I think it went back clear to like 2001. If you bought a brand new quad or dirt bike, you actually got a letter in the mail wanting you to register that thing. So it was like, it was an option to start with to get your bike legal, but then it became a mandate. And luckily we got an injunction passed on that where they can't really do that right now, and you can kind of throw that letter away, so to speak. But
hopefully that injunction stays. Hopefully that is codified into, a revision.
I know, like, a lot of people at work know that I'm part of that off-highway vehicle coalition. They're coming to me with the letter in the mail saying, hey, I bought this old Honda Rancher back in 2003, and I'm getting this letter in the mail. I don't even have the thing anymore. I sold it.
I think my dad got a letter in the mail for like some little 90 or 100 some cc quad I had when I was really, really young.
Yeah. It's like that thing was flipped in a pond 18 years ago. It's not around anymore. And like, people were trying to have to prove that they didn't own it anymore, and it was just another way for the state to try to grab your tax money. And
money's the ultimate driver.
For sure.
I mean, if it comes down to it, can you just write farm use on the side of your KDX?
I think that's what I would do. I know my dad always talked about this guy that, I think it was an old beat up Ford farm truck that they had down below their house. There was another farmer close to them, and he, everybody would spray paint on the side of the truck and the tailgate, farm use, and that let you go 25, 50 miles or whatever off the farm to go get feed or whatever you needed. But this guy had spray painted farm abuse all over the truck.
Nice.
He was just driving it on the street like every day, normal to work. Yeah. Well, awesome, man. We've rambled on for almost an hour, And I think we've covered a lot of good stuff here today. And yeah.
I'll be looking forward to next week. Hopefully, eventually, we're going to get on the topic of tires and some other fun tech stuff.
I think that should be a good topic for next week. We can go over tires. Maybe, like, I know you'd mentioned to me talking a few days ago about the snake oil gadgets that supposedly help you ride better.
I would like to touch on some snake oil stuff in the bike industry, or I guess products that imply that they're going to make you a better rider, when in reality it's just because it's what Graham Jarvis is running doesn't mean that it's going to have any appreciable effect on your abilities. But I'd definitely like to get into that side of things.
Yeah, well, we can definitely do that next time, and I'm sure we can ramble on another hour about that type of stuff, and maybe talk about Billy Mays here with the Recluse Clutch.
Billy Mays here with these hot new products from Tusk.
Here to sell you a set of Seal Savers.
Yeah, that's something I want to touch on too. The Seal Savers.
Yeah,
I fell for that whole, meme or what have you. And in hindsight, a product that's is designed in such a way it holds the maximum amount of grit against your fork leg probably isn't a great idea. And I even went through the trouble of flipping them inside out and hosing them down. And then when I still had to replace a set of fork seals and a normal maintenance interval, luckily there's no nicks in the chrome, but there's definitely some spots that are shinier than others from having been worn by some grit and stuff. So yeah, it's another thing I'd like to touch on.
Oh, for sure. Yep. And hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope the quality was a little bit better. We switched over to StreamYard, and I think it's a little bit more professional, so to speak. And we appreciate everybody tuning in. And I think we'll take some comments here at the end, and we'll sign off here.
That sounds good. Thanks again for watching.
Yeah. We figure out some different handlebars. I've always been a CR double high guy myself. I like my bars up to get my elbows kind of in attack position when you're standing up. But I will say, like, as far as handlebars and dual sports, it's getting harder and harder to seem like they're too short. So you can't fit, any of your switches or your headlight.
Oh, yeah, it's awful.
You can't fit anything on them anymore.
They have these god awful, 2.5 inch, 3 inch wide, bodies for your blinker cluster and all that stuff. And then your clutch perch is within a 1/16 of an inch of that. So if you're one of the guys that wants to try to inboard that a little bit to improve your leverage on the clutch, you're kind of SOL.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I'm a big fan of fat bars, taper out 7/8 on the sides. You get that big center section, makes them a lot more rigid. It gets you away from having to run a crossbar on the top if that's not quite your thing.
Yeah.
Of course, aluminum bars are, in my mind, a significant improvement. That's
for sure.
Really anything. I know Tusk makes some pretty decent bars if you're wanting to get away from, if you got stock mild steel noodle bars on your bike that are going to, pretzel the first time you lay it down. Ask me how I know.
Like those the Amazon bars I've bought for the XR650R when we went to Charleston. They weren't Pro Tapers, they were Pro Cockins, and they had the Pro Taper logo and everything on them. When I flipped that bike, immediately they were just pretzeled up.
Yep.
Sure. Let's see here. Yeah, that's probably true. And I'm glad we're kind of catching up finally to our neighboring states as far as that's concerned, because Ohio, PA, Maryland, Virginia, all of them around us were so easy to get a motorcycle street legal, and it's high time West Virginia kind of catches up to the 20th century. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thumbs up back at you. Oh, cool. I know when I had the Versa 650, I was trying to find a set of handlebars for it because they were street bars. They were super narrow, and they had a weird high bend in them. I just didn't like how they felt. And I ended up with a set of Renthal CR double high Pro Tapers with like rocks risers on it too. And then it was like right after I bought that, I seen that Pro Taper was making the big adjustable. They had a high rise like a normal adventure bike would, but they were way longer to fit your accessories on. So
Wake me up when they start making Pro Taper ape hangers. I'll consider putting some on my KTM. It'd be the hottest bike around.
I want the street bike little just ends.
Oh, like the clip-ons?
Yeah, the clip-ons. Yeah, clip-ons. Clip-ons with hand guards. That's what I want.
That's a wild seating position to even try to envision.
Hey, I used to off-road a CBR 600. They would have come in handy for sure. Thanks. Appreciate that. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to sign off here. We'll see you next Tuesday, and it's time for work for me.
Well, it's time for me to get ready for bed. So two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We appreciate it. And we'll see you next Tuesday for episode 3 of Tallboys
and Trackmasters.
See y'all.